We all know that research says that mastery of the first language can be correlated to learning. Can you help us understand how a learner's mastery of his or her first language can actually contribute to his or her overall learning?
Right. A lot of parents think that because their child already speaks their first language, that's enough. And the reason they send their kids to school is to learn the second language. But in actuality, a child who starts school at, say, age 5 or 6 can speak that first language as well as any 5 or 6-year-old can, but not to the extent that they need to develop that, especially when you focus on academic development of the first language. And research shows that the more we learn to articulate concepts and ideas in our first language, the easier it is to talk about those concepts in our second language as the second language develops. But if we bypass that first language and we focus only on the second language, then we're mixing two things that we need to, for young learners, sort of separate and let them talk about, for example, addition or subtraction in their first language. And then as they build the vocabulary in the second languages, then they can talk about those same concepts in those, rather than integrating concepts and language when they're young. Later, when they have the ability to converse in the second language about topics, then you can use the second language to learn new academic content. But when they don't have the vocabulary or the knowledge of the second language, it makes it all the more difficult to use the second language to learn academic content. So it's a strong correlation. The more you can say in your first language, the more that will transfer to the second language. And so getting kids to talk about academic content in the first language helps them learn that.
So just to emphasize, how is MTBMLE helpful in learning one's second language, for example, Filipino or English?
Okay. First of all, they have to understand what they're learning about Filipino, right? So the only way to understand something new is to put it in the context of what we know and what we're able to talk about. So the first language brings meaning to the second language that we're learning. And the first language allows us to engage in the topic so that we can understand the second language. A lot of people think that, just massive amounts of exposure to the second language is how you learn the second language. But research shows it's not massive amounts of exposure. It's how they're exposed, so that they are exposed to limited amounts of language, not massive amounts. And it's the manner of exposure, so that scaffolding, so that the teacher is there assisting and helping them learn. So it's not just teaching all the subjects in the second language. Rather, it's limiting the second language as a subject at first, then using the first language to build the first language, to build literacy, to understand math and science and social studies and music and all the subjects of the classroom. And then as the second language increases, so that children can understand and converse in the second language, they can use the second language for learning, then we can move toward using that as a medium of instruction.
There are still some confusions about the role or the place of MTBMLE in our curriculum. So I'm going to ask you a very basic question. Is it a subject, a domain, a competency, or a medium of instruction?
Yeah. To me, it's all of those in many ways, because it's the foundation of learning. When we use the language for teaching, we want to use it to teach all academic content, not just for teaching the mother tongue. It's a subject because we develop language so that children use their first language to learn to read and to write and to understand grammar. So they have to learn to understand how the grammar of their own language works, and then compare that to how the grammar of the second language works. So most teachers don't have experience thinking about the grammar of their own languages. So they analyze it all through the grammar that they know, which is English. So that's going to take the work of a lot of people to help teachers learn how the grammatical structure of the first language works and how it relates to Filipino and then English, so that children can build on what they know. So for example, in first language grammar, you can give two sentences to a child in their first language and say which one is right and which one is wrong. They can tell you which is right. They know that intuitively because they know intuitively the grammar of their language.
they may not be able to tell you why. They may not have the labels of the classifiers of that system because they don't know that system. But as soon as we can put classifiers on that system, and I'm talking, you know, from grade 1 with just basic things, not the complex grammars, but that helps them learn the basic grammar of Filipino and of English, and then it gets increasingly more complex as they go up through their schooling.
So is it safe to say then that in our curriculum it is a subject and a medium of instruction?
Exactly.
Right. Right.
And it should also encompass more than just kindergarten through grade 3. Research actually shows that it's more effective when you have at least your basic education, which is
All the
kindergarten
way
to
to grade 6, yeah.
as for using the first language to interact with academic content and also to scaffold the learning of the second language and the third language, and gradually moving into using the second language and the third language as medium of instruction to learn new academic content.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I think that it is important that we realize how, well, the role of first language in learning the second language and then the third language. And I'm glad that your explanation enlightened us on that note.
Can I add to that?